Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the B Team Analytics Podcast, your home for NBA analytics. And it is currently 10:13 p.m. on February 16th, 2025. The All-Star game wrapped up exactly 15 minutes ago, and I didn't have a plan of recording this tonight, but I was fired up during this game. To say the least, I was fired up. A lot of that had to do with Draymond Green, one of my least favorite players of all time. And I thought, hey, let's just jump on. We'll record this tonight while I'm, in my feels. I'm in my feels about the NBA. Let's get it out there in a podcast. So hopefully, this goes well. Maybe it's just one giant rant about how I hate Draymond Green. Maybe we'll actually talk about the All-Star game. Who knows? You guys are going to be as surprised as I am for what this podcast turns out to be. But to start, obviously, I think the conversation that needs to be had is the All-Star game still working? And it just finished 15 minutes ago. I thought the format was a good idea. And Draymond Green, this is where it all started. Draymond Green basically on live TV, and this is something I've said forever, and it still gets me going. Basically, media just badmouths the NBA at every single chance they get. They badmouth the NBA. And Draymond Green goes on live TV. This is the pinnacle of NBA. This is the only thing on right now. There's nothing else in the NBA happening except for this. And Draymond goes out there and basically says, this is the stupidest format he's ever seen. And this is not the solve the NBA needs. Now, a couple things that really get me fired up about that. First off, who cares? Praise it. In that case, just praise the new formatting. Who cares? Because if, a regular someone who doesn't, religiously watch basketball like you or me, because let's be honest, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably love NBA a little too much. You have to sing the praises because this is the point where, casual fans are jumping on because it's like, this is the only thing on right now. And I can look right now. There is not a lot of sporting events on tonight. There might have been, I'm checking right now, pulling up my phone. Yeah. Couple men's basketball games. Yeah, a couple men's basketball, NCAA basketball games. A couple soccer games, but those were this morning. So yeah, right now, that was the only major thing on. And you're just bad-mouthing it. Like, come on, that's not good for the brand. That doesn't help the NBA at all. And he goes out there and, well, I think now we can start talking about the actual product here after I got that Draymond. We're going to talk about Draymond Green again here. So if you don't know, the format is 4 teams. 3 teams were all-stars. And 1 team was from the Rising Stars game. And personally, to me, I loved the Rising Stars game. I think those games were super competitive all the way through. I enjoyed it. The guys were trying the entire time. It was an excellent basketball program. But the winner of that tournament, and they've been doing this kind of format for the last 2 years now, so it's not like it's a radical change for them. It's the same thing they've done in the last couple years. The winner of that tournament played tonight. And I thought, that's a cool idea. Give these guys some chance, some exposure in front of a nationally televised audience to get their name out there. I thought it was a great idea. Draymond Green goes out there and is like, no, Rising Stars shouldn't be out here. It's not great. They didn't earn it. They don't deserve this. Yes, sure, they're not all-stars. They tried harder than every single all-star out there. Honestly, they were playing the Shaq OGs. This team had, Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, Jason Tatum, KD, Harden, Brown, Irving. These guys are perennial generational talents. They almost lost. Like the final score, 42-35. It was a pretty close game. And I think there was almost 11 ties, 3 lead changes during this. There were times where, the Rising Stars were winning this game. Um, yeah, 3 I think they were leading for, 10 maybe less than that. I'm kinda rambling now, but they were leading. They were leading this game. They were leading this game at one point, and the Shaq OGs actually had to turn it on for once. And Draymond was then after the game all this happened, the OGs played fantastically, and we'll get to them later. I wanna do a little bit of a deeper dive on the, rising stars after this whole All-Star rant because I did enjoy that, and I wanted to touch a couple players on that, but afterwards, it was like, yeah, Draymond on the live broadcast basically said, "Yeah, these guys don't deserve them losing showed they don't deserve to be out here." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. They lost by 5 more or less, but they had a stop and score to potentially cut this to a one possession game, and it just didn't happen, but that's that's nor here nor there sort of thing. Um at the end of the day, the Shaq OGs did go on to win it, so they at least, redeemed themselves from this kind of game. But that goes to kind of the bigger question of, well, the finals. Well, let's take a step back. So obviously Shaq OGs won, and the box scores, told kind of the story. Damian Lillard kind of led scoring with 9. It was pretty even across the board. Jaylen Brown had 8 points as well. Steph Curry had 8. Pretty even scoring across the board. A guy I really want to highlight, and I didn't really back in our award episode not too long ago, I kind of downplayed Stephon Castle to get my Zach Edey kind of agenda across, and Stephon Castle played amazing in this game. I think really kind of holding this team together. Only had 6 points. Dalton Connect, actually, from the Lakers, or Lakers now, that was part of a botched trade, so he should have been on Charlotte, but we'll get to that next week on my trade episode. Had 8 points leading scorer. So for this team, it was really kind of an even spray. I think all those guys were trying. I think it was a great, well played game, and just at the end of the day, they kind of lost the game. So shout out to that Rising Stars team for really stepping up in a big moment. This is for most of them kind of the biggest moment of their life. Not life. That's maybe a little aggressive. NBA career. This is probably the biggest stage they've been on, and I think they really stepped up and, delivered a great product for the fans. And it really showed because, that OG team really did have to lock in towards the end to kind of pull it out. They were down. I think the largest lead they had or deficit was about 5 points. So it wasn't the largest comeback they had to make, but a comeback nonetheless. So that's something to note there. But at the end of the day, they won and they're moving on. So that was that. Moving on to the second game of the night, the Young Stars versus the Global Stars. A little bit, more of a lopsided game towards the Global Stars with Shea dropping 12 points, leading the team. This Young Stars team, gave it a chance. I think they were tied or up 1 early in the game, but kind of just struggled to get things going. This is a team with Tyler Hero, Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson Jr., which I wanted to give a really big shout out to Jaren Jackson Jr. He was my MVP of the night because in the pregame interviews, he said he was going to be picking up full court, and that's what they did, or that's what he did the entire time. And I want to give a massive props to him because that's what we're missing in an All-Star game is people caring. And Jaren Jackson Jr. came out here and cared. And it was great to see sort of thing. And obviously, I think this Young Stars team did care. I just didn't think they got the offense going that they needed to. I did see a lot of good defense out there. Darius Garland had 2 steals. Jaren Jackson, Brunson, and Williams also had a steal in there as well. So I think this team really did try, but it just didn't get it going. With the Global Stars, obviously, just being stacked top to bottom with Shea, Pascal, Donovan Mitchell, Jokic, Wemby just kind of took over like he did. He, also tried pretty hard during this game, and it really showed. 6 points, 4 rebounds, a block and a steal. So, and overall, it just looked like, he was facilitating, really getting things going. He did come off the bench, but did have, great scoring output on that. So, at the end of the day, this was a decent game, just kind of a little lopsided. And to wrap up everything, the final game of the night, what should have been the marquee matchup of this entire weekend, was an absolute dud. Honestly, I think it was the Shaq team versus Chuck, the OGs versus the international stars. And the OGs just went off on an amazing 11-0 start to the game. Jokic just botched 2 free throws at the beginning of the game, and kind of, slow start. They would have had 2, but, botched free throws. Make your free throws. Come on. But this was a completely lopsided game. And what was weird about it, so they went off on this 11-0 run, went to commercial. And commercials were awful during this broadcast. There was commercials every other minute. It felt like I was watching more commercials than I was actual basketball at times. And we went to commercial, came back from commercial. They had a really good presentation for the TNT guys, the Inside the NBA, Chuck, Shaq, Ernie, all those guys, Kenny the Jet. Had a great presentation for them, and then went to another commercial. So at one point, it was basically 20 minutes without basketball action there for a while. And then, after this 20-minute break, the game basically dissolved into every other All-Star game we had. And up to that point, there was some resemblance of actual NBA games in those first 2 games. It was fantastic to see a little bit of competition, a little bit of trying, and then after that 20-minute break, it dissolved into madness, and no one really cared, sort of thing. So that was really disappointing in my eyes. And I love the NBA. I'll say it here right now. NBA basketball, professional basketball, is my favorite sports, hands down. Above college basketball, minus March Madness. No one beats March Madness. Football, I care so much more about basketball than football. Stuff like this just is so disappointing to see, because it just dissolves into a product that no one wants to watch. It hurts the NBA, and especially right now with the NBA competing with the Four Nations hockey tournament, which guys in hockey are starting World War III over an exhibition match, which is mind-boggling because the NBA can't even get close to that right now. And it just kind of, begs the question of, well, what happens? Do you just, I wouldn't say scrap the All-Star game altogether. Hockey's doing it with great success, but would that translate to an NBA setting, which I even forgot to mention, LeBron James sat the All-Star game for some reason. He had right foot soreness, and I'm kind of like, okay, at least suit up for it. Giannis, I will give Giannis a pass this time around, because he was also hurt during the game, but Giannis at least suited up for the game. He suited up, he just didn't play, and I will give him props for that. LeBron just took all his photos with his street clothes, didn't even care. It's just rough to see, because that's the face of your league, not giving, any cares about, the product out there. So pass on Giannis, but LeBron gets my LVP, least valuable player of the weekend, sort of thing on this. So that's my rant on the All-Star game. We're going to turn to some more uplifting things of the weekend. But this probably the most disappointed I've been in the NBA, because, right, it's, your back's against the wall. This was supposed to be a big weekend for you, especially, with everyone complaining about ratings and all this. If you came out and proved yourself this weekend, you could have put all that talk to shame. But now we're having the same exact conversations again, and it doesn't even help that this is, a problem. We'll get to, some other things. I'm going to touch on one thing on the skills competition that really hurt the brand. But it's just stuff like this. It's just disheartening to see as an NBA fan because it's like, well, what do you do now? It's hard to kind of be like, yeah, NBA is still great, but like I have hockey fans who obviously I'm watching the Four Nations sort of thing because it's just fantastic product. And hockey fans are like, yeah, look at this. This is amazing. I'm like, yeah, NBA couldn't even come close to that right now, honestly. So we'll see what happens next year. I really want them to implement the one-on-one tournament. I think that could save a lot of things on the All-Star weekend. If there's one thing I know about basketball players is their egos are through the roof. And to have people sign up for that and, show the egos like, hey, I'm the best player in the league. I can prove that. I think that would be a great product to watch, but we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll stick with this one more year, see if it works. If not, they'll revert back, sort of thing. So that is my All-Star Sunday night sort of rant. Let's turn to, let's go Friday night. Let's start with the Rising Stars Challenge. And honestly, this is one of my favorite events of the weekend because it's a great opportunity to see some of these, up and coming stars in the NBA, really prove their points. And I think we got a great product out of that. And obviously, they stick it on Friday night after the Celebrity All-Star game. So it's kind of like a second thought in most people's minds. But I wish, maybe it's a Saturday night thing, maybe even put it on, Sunday, maybe an early Sunday kind of event. But beside the point, Rising Stars Challenge, same format as the All-Star game. Obviously, spoilers, the Team C won. That team had Stefan Castle, which I want to start with him. I really disrespected him in our NBA awards prediction. This man is so good at basketball. He commanded the game. He played, most of the game. Let's see here. Where's his points? He had 6 points on the night, or at least in the first game. 6 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists in, a 15-20 minute game, which is fantastic. Leading scorer of the team was Keontae George out of Baylor. 10 points, but 0 rebounds, 1 assist. So overall, I think Castle had such a better performance because it was. If you watch the game, the team was Castle. Everything kind of ran through him. He was pulling some defenses, finding the open guys, getting the scores, and I think it's hard to get that respect out defenders if you're not playing fantastically, and that was proven here, sort of thing. On this team also was Zach Edey, the guy who was like, hey, he should win it. Zach Edey didn't look anything close to what Stefan Castle looked like. Kind of disappointing. He was a big man down low. He did pull in, 4 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist. Pretty solid numbers, but, at the end of the day, it was aggressively overshadowed by Stefan Castle. And then Dalton Connect also had some points out there. I think he's a really, really good player. I think that Dalton Connect trade that kind of blew up due to the injury, I think is honestly a blessing in disguise for the Lakers because I think he can really provide a lot of bench scoring for that Lakers team in, a pretty depleted already bench. So I think it's really good to see him out there and kind of play well. On the other team on this game, you had players like Grady Dick dropping 12 points, 0 rebounds, 1 assist. KU guy, I'm a big K-State fan, so it's hard to really celebrate anything good. But, he played pretty fantastically out there, had, pretty good shooting stats, had, 71% shooting tonight. So really, performing well, really kind of the leader of that team and, looked really good. Alex Sarr, the second overall pick of the draft, really looked pretty good out there. Didn't really set the world on fire, but did kind of prove himself a little bit in this game, kind of showed the league like, hey, I'm still competing, and I think it really worked out for him on that. Second game of the night, my personal favorite because Mitch Richmond was the second coach of that team, so go Cats, baby. Did lose the game by 1 point in the final minutes to the G League team. So they had a group of G Leaguers who were out there competing on this, and the G League ultimately winning, kind of showing like, hey, you know, these younger guys are playing really well. And this team had, a lot of good guys who I'm going to be 100% for real. I don't know a lot of these guys. The only one that, coming into this game I knew was JD Davis, just because he plays for the Celtics, or at least playing for the Celtics main team right now. And that was like really the only one I knew. And also Matt McClung, who we'll get to later. But after that, I really didn't know about anything else. A couple names I really want to bring up here. Bryce McGowan, fantastic player out there, had 12 points, ultimately scoring the game-winning shot at the end of the game. Came out and had a great performance. 12 points, 1 rebound, 1 steal, and 1 assist and 2 steals on the night. Really kind of commanding that game over, a slightly, less impressive team of rising stars, but still NBA caliber players nonetheless, really commanding the game. And then finally, a other guy I kind of want to bring up, Leonard Miller. He is a center on the Timberwolves G League team. He's a very tall player, kind of a traditional big man kind of role. He did shoot some very ill-advised threes. I think he started kind of jacking them up there towards the end. Didn't make a single three-pointer. Yeah, 0 for 2 on three-pointers. Really kind of ugly shots, but really commanded down low. Ended the game 14 points and 7 rebounds, which led, most everyone on the team. So I think, not the greatest player I've ever seen. Nothing that like really made me jump out. I was like, whoa, this is fantastic, but great player nonetheless. And then finally jumping to the final game, the championship game of that night, Chris Mullen team won. That was, the Dalton Connect, the Stefan Castle, Zach Edey team won. Just very commanding start to finish. And it was fun to see, the difference between, an NBA kind of player and a G League kind of player. In that game, it really, really showed kind of the disparity between the two. And this is absolutely no hate to the G League. A lot of those guys, a lot of them played, very well. Just you can kind of see they were just a step behind most of the time of some of these guys. And it was just hard to, pick up the pace for the G Leaguers and get in that rhythm. But, at the end of the day, any of those G League guys could beat me in a basketball game. So it's hard for me to sit here behind a microphone and say, oh my God, these guys are terrible, when they're still fantastic basketball players. But it just shows really how hard it is to get in the NBA. And I thought that seeing that kind of at full display was really interesting to see. But, at the end of the day, this C group really deserved it. I think they played fantastically the entire weekend, and deserves the recognition they get. And I think this was Stefan Castle's real coming out party, because most of the time he's just kind of stuck behind Wemby, stuck behind De'Aaron Fox. But right now this was his chance to shine, and he really shined and took advantage of the moment. So he unfortunately is skyrocketed. Not unfortunately, but for my Zach Edey propaganda, he skyrocketed to number 1 on my Rookie of the Year conversation, and he was there already for everyone else. But now, for me, he's number 1 on that list. And finally, let's just quickly wrap up with All-Star Saturday night. A few just high-level points to kind of touch on here. The skills challenge. I personally don't like the skills challenge. I'll watch it. I watched every single event this weekend. The skills challenge is stupid. And the highlight that came out of that is Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul cheating the skills challenge. Like in points, so you had to throw a chest, or it was like bounce pass, chest pass, 3-point, free throw, and corner shot. And what was funny is those two went out. They did the passes, but for the shots, they just kind of chucked them off the rack as quick as possible to move on to the next rack because you only got 3 shots to get it done, sort of thing, just to, speed stuff along. So they just chucked all 3 towards, the ball boy, moved on, chucked them, and did all of that, and then just sprinted down the course. Had the fastest time amongst everyone, but immediately got disqualified. And what was funny about that was the sideline reporter for the night was, trying to run over there to get a comment from, Wemby and Chris Paul, and the NBA officials were literally shooing them away because they're like, this is the worst image we could have possibly had for the NBA. This is our future star and, a Hall of Famer, basically just, mocking the game sort of thing. And they were like shooing away, no comment, and to like shut everything down. So I thought that was hilarious. That was really kind of the only highlight. I think the funny joke that came out of that is the Canada versus US game was basically the same time. And the joke was coming around that hockey was basically starting World War III while the NBA was cheating in the skills challenge. So I thought that was a funny little joke just to kind of, show, how much people try on All-Star Weekend. But I thought that was pretty funny. Moving on to the 3-point competition, I thought it was a really good 3-point competition this year. Damian Lillard was trying to go for a three-peat, ultimately throwing up a little bit of a dud. I think the first 3 people to go put up really good scores. Buddy Hield scored almost 30 points or something like that, made 70% of the shots. Darius Garland also made the final 3. He put up 19 points. And then one of the final people to go was Tyler Hero, and he was right on the bubble of that final cut. And he ended up, like, Damian Lillard came down and needed like one more bucket to go on to the finals and ended up missing the final shot he needed. So Tyler Hero snuck into the finals. You could see on his face he was shocked, as anyone else in that building was, to be moving on to the finals. But, he moved on. And in the finals, a similar situation happened. He went up, put up a really, really good score. And Buddy Hield was coming around and needed to go like 5 for 5 on his final rack to win. And he ended up going 4 for 5 on the final rack, missing, it was the second to last or last ball of the competition. And both times Tyler Hero just kind of snuck in, but did what he needed to do to win. So I got a little tip of my hat to Tyler Hero here for taking home that victory. But Celtics fan, kind of hate the Heat, but props to Tyler Hero for that. And finally, the marquee the marquee event of Saturday night, the NBA dunk competition. And we all just have to take a step back and recognize greatness when greatness is due. And Matt McClung is hands down single-handedly saving the NBA dunk contest every single year. It came out the other day that he has made more money in his career from the dunk contest than he has his like actual playing contract. So this man is literally dunking for his livelihood right now, and I think that's kind of a cool thing to highlight. But this is another chance to kind of tip the hat to Stephon Castle. Really gave a really solid performance. And And, in any other year where, Mac McClung is not in it, he would have easily won. The other two guys really didn't show much. Both of them kind of missed their first dunk and really didn't show anything. Stefan Castle came out, had, four really, really, really good dunks, kind of set the crowd on fire. But, at the end of the day, it's hard to beat a guy who jumped over a car. And I'm not kidding when I say the dude jumped over a Kia car during the dunk competition. Not like Blake Griffin did, where he jumped over the hood. This man jumped over the top of the car. I don't even remember how tall he is. Mac McClung is 6'2". This man is my height and jumped over a Kia car. I'm happy if I jump over a table. And this man is jumping over a Kia car, which is baffling in my mind, sort of thing. So, well deserved championship, well deserved three-peat. This man is saving the dunk competition. And that, begs a really good question of what does this dunk competition need to get back to, being the highlight of the weekend? And that really just means, getting stars back out here, getting people like Ja Morant, getting people like Zion Williams, if he's not hurt, to go out there and, show what they got. Not, a guy you have to call up from the G League every time or every weekend to, get in the All-Star game. But, real NBA stars to, break that kind of LeBron James curse when he's, basically said he's never going to do it, and really kind of hurt the perception of it, because it used to be, big stars going out there to do it. Your Kobe Bryants, your Vince Carters, guys like that who, were marquee guys, stepping in and doing the dunk competition. And it gave us great moments. And, it's hard to, get the hype around the dunk competition when you're calling up, rookie no names, no offense to any of those guys, to, do the dunk competition when you have high flyer above the rim guys in the NBA who would put on a show. But it's just, the stigma around it with everything that kind of happened. So hopefully maybe we'll turn the tides. There's a little Twitter exchange with Ja Morant potentially out there potentially getting his name thrown out there. So we'll see what happens next year. Wrap up, let's just final thoughts on the weekend. I think it's hard to call this a successful weekend. It truly is. And I don't want to badmouth the NBA like I've been complaining all the other media people do, but this is well after I'm not on live TV. I'm pushing this out to maybe 5 people max. So I think I deserve the right to kind of bash the weekend a little bit. But it's hard to say this was a win, especially when you're competing against something new with the Four Nations. I think Saturday night's viewership's probably going to be way down, because I think hockey had a much better product that was put out there that night. And then on Saturday or Sunday, the, big marquee event, it was just another All-Star game, minimal care, very much corporate greedy sort of All-Star game. And it's hard to say this was any different than any other weekend. And a weekend that, in my eyes was very, very big for the NBA, because the next thing on the docket is the playoffs, where it's hard to, push, the NBA playoffs when, kind of your big marquee mid-season sort of thing kind of went over as a flop. So definitely something I'm never going to call for Adam Silver's job. I think he's doing as best of a job as he can, but I think he needs to start switching his thinking very, very soon, because I think we're on a very, very fine line right now in the NBA where you have the chance of going either way. And I think you really need to start reining things in here, whether that's, getting the old guys out and start pushing kind of the newer, younger generation, or, changing up the All-Star in general, maybe doing something like NHL's doing and kind of having sort of Four Nations sort of thing, trying to kick off something like that, maybe a more competitive tournament, doing a week long, kind of sort of one-on-one thing, anything, just something needs to change. And Adam Silver, we trust. I think he can get something done, but something needs to change, and I'm hoping it does, or else I think people are going to start calling for his job here pretty soon, to kind of get stuff turned around. So, with that, thank you for listening to my rant here. I think, it might have been a little bit of a better rant if I recorded this tomorrow, but I wanted to get you guys an episode out on Monday. With that, enjoy the All-Star break. A couple more days without basketball, but if I don't see it by point basketball game starts again, I hope you watch an NBA game.